broken Kanu's way, and Dahui's right out of the centre. It's Kanu, what's he going to do? Oh! Can you believe it?
Hello Arsenal fans, welcome back to another episode of Can You Believe It, an Arsenal podcast. And for the first time in this podcast history, I am talking about an Arsenal win in the Premier League. And for the first time in 14 years in the league, anyway, Arsenal have beaten Manchester United at Old Trafford. So it is a very special podcast because these wins do not come very often. I think we have beaten Manchester United at Old Trafford a very small amount of times. I can't think of the exact amount of times, but the last time we beat them was in 2006 with Emmanuel Adebayor poking home the winner. And now in 2020, we have beaten them 1-0 thanks to a Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang penalty. But not only was the win fantastic and the result really, really good, the performance was phenomenal. Now, we will get to that and I will talk about the performance and everything. So this is what is coming up on the show. I'm going to talk about the team selection, maybe the reaction on social media to that team selection, the structure of the performance, the chances we had, especially in the first half, three players in particular. So we'll talk about Thomas Partey, of course. Gabriel seems to be mentioned every podcast now, so he's been fantastic. And Elneny. The penalty we won, and I'm going to talk a bit more about Arteta's stock. And I heard something on a different podcast, a much better podcast than mine, over the weekend that's kind of similar to what I want to talk about. And questions from listeners as well. So I asked on Twitter if anyone wanted to ask me some questions, and I got a few responses, more than I expected. So let's just get into it. So, like I said, I would talk about the team selection first. And we lined up with Leno in goal, Bellerin, Rob Holding, Gabriel and Tierney, Thomas Partey, Mohamed Elneny, Bukayo Saka, Willian, Lacazette and Aubameyang. So the first things that you can say about our team selection is that Aubameyang is once again on the left, Lacazette's back up front. There was no Nicolas Pepe. I thought maybe Nicolas Pepe would have got on the pitch because he was very, very influential against Manchester United in January under Mikel Arteta. He really, really done well. He ripped Luke Shaw for the whole game. So I was surprised to see Willian, but at this point, I think we have to accept that Mikel Arteta really likes Willian, and that's his first choice for the right wing. And then I think the decision was Elneny, I think, raised a few eyebrows. The social media reaction to the lineup was a bit disappointing. I mean, I'm used to Arsenal Twitter now going into complete meltdown when the team is not completely perfect. But I could kind of understand why Elneny played. He's physical. He's got a fantastic engine. He will run around all game, and I'll mention more about him later. But the selection was justified. And yeah, the rest of the team picks itself. I guess Rob Holding was a surprise. I thought Mustafi would have started. I thought it was pretty guaranteed that Mustafi would have started. But no, Rob Holding, late fitness test, came back in and performed very well as well. The whole team did, and I think that's the real discussion here, is how good that performance was. The first half, we controlled them. We pressed them very well. They struggled to get out of their defensive third, really. To pass it into midfield is very difficult for them when you have Lacazette, Aubameyang, Willian, Elneny and Partey and Saka all man-marking passing options. It was a really good performance. Manchester United set up in a diamond, and that was always going to play into our strengths. We are very strong on the wings, and it showed here. So we felt comfortable. We created a few good chances in the first half. We had that Bellerin chance, who crossed it in for Aubameyang, who didn't make contact on it, but if he did, it was probably a goal. The Aubameyang pass to Lacazette, which just got flicked away from Lacazette by Lindelof. Again, another big chance. Willian hit the crossbar, which was... you kind of expect him to do better for the amount of space he had, but he actually done pretty well, to be fair, but you expected that to be in a goal. And to go in at 0-0 at half-time was very undeserved because we deserved the lead. We were much more dominant, especially in midfield, and we deserved the lead. And when you went in at half-time, I think a lot of fans, including myself, were a bit worried because you go in at half-time against Manchester United at Old Trafford, 0-0. You've had the best part of the play, and you've seen this script before. You've seen Arsenal balls it up. You've seen Arsenal have a great performance, and then Manchester United get a goal, and we don't look like scoring or coming back. This was not one of these games. We stuck to our task, and we defended brilliantly, and we were rewarded with a penalty. Mike Dean awarding a penalty to Arsenal. What is 2020? Especially at Old Trafford as well, against Manchester United, who always get a lot of penalties. I think they've had 28 in the last 2 seasons compared to our 8 or so. So we got a penalty. Aubameyang slotted it away very confidently, danced on their pitch, which was a nice treat, which you don't get to see very often because we're usually the ones getting players dancing on our pitch. And Manchester United threatened a bit, but not really getting anywhere. There was the Elneny rebound off his knee onto Leno's face, which went onto the post, which was, again, would have been comical Arsenal if that went in. And we made it to full time without many scares, and we won 1-0, and it was a real good performance. And I think that was the encouraging thing. A lot of Arsenal fans are very pessimistic about Old Trafford games, including myself, even though I strangely felt confident that we would get a result from here. But the majority of the time, you're expecting a defeat, or you're expecting just a dull draw. I mean, how many times have we gone to Old Trafford and not got a result under any manager that has come after Sir Alex Ferguson? You think of the David Moyes game in 2013-14, where we lost 1-0, Robin van Persie haunting us again with a header. And this wasn't peak Manchester United. This was a Manchester United team who would end up finishing 7th, and we were at that rate, at that point in time, we were closer to the title. Well, closer to the top of the league. We weren't close to the title in the end. And then under Louis van Gaal, Man United had basically their C team playing. We still managed to lose that game. Even under Jose Mourinho, where they were playing quite bad, and we still managed to lose. We played Maitland-Niles in midfield, Mkhitaryan scored, and we still lost. So Old Trafford games are not something that is very good in the memory for Arsenal fans. But this was one of those games, and we should enjoy it. Yes, we didn't create bucket loads of shots, but I think these big games, it's difficult to be creating a ton of shots. I know Manchester United are pretty poor this season and they look like they're vulnerable, but we stuck to our game plan and we got what we deserved. We're already better than last year. We got a point last year at Old Trafford. Now it is a 1-0 win. We've got 3 points where we didn't last year, which is good. So it is an enjoyable weekend for us. Twitter after an Arsenal win is always fun, and it was a fun night last night. I saw a lot of complaints from Manchester United fans about a Gabriel tackle on Nemanja Matic, and saying that it should have been a penalty. I don't think it was a penalty. I think it was a perfectly great tackle from Gabriel. So seeing them be upset was quite entertaining, because I think they've had such a hold over us for years, and I think just to be able to stick one to them is pretty enjoyable. Let's get to individual performances now, and I have to start with Thomas Partey. He was absolutely fantastic. This was his second start in the Premier League, and he was absolutely monstrous. Now, before I get into the stats, I think there is this thing with Partey that anyone who approaches him to try and win the ball, there's no point in trying to even contest. He's always going to shrug you off. And this was, I can understand Fred and McTominay because they're not very strong players, but Paul Pogba, in my opinion, is quite a physical player. He asserts his dominance, and in that game, he was absolutely bossing him around. There was a couple of times where he lost the ball, but then he was like a rabid wolf trying to win that ball back really quickly. It was really good to see. But also, he was quite adventurous as well. He looked to drive up the field, looked to pass forwards. He wasn't just doing always the sidewards passing. With him and Elneny in that double pivot in the midfield too, Elneny was more of the safer option, which obviously suits his game, and Partey was the more adventurous one. It was a really good combination, a very good blend, and football is a lot about partnerships, and I don't think this is a partnership that we could see maybe against the smaller teams. I think you might need a Dani Ceballos instead of Mohamed Elneny, but in these big games, maybe we have found a blueprint. Maybe Mohamed Elneny is the man to partner Thomas Partey in the midfield just because of the energy. But he was fantastic. Let's get on to the stats though. So this is from Squawka. Thomas Partey's games by numbers against Manchester United. So he was 100% of his take-ons completed, 100% of aerial duels won, 93% pass accuracy, 79 touches, 11 ball recoveries, 10 duels won, 4 tackles made, 3 take-ons completed, 2 interceptions, 2 fouls won, 1 clearance. It was incredible performance. He got voted man of the match by Arsenal fans. I mean, you could have pretty much gave it to most of the team, but I thought it was well deserved. He was fantastic on the night, and we paid 45 million for him, and at this present moment of time, it looks like a good deal, which is encouraging. Obviously, it's still very, very early on, but you can see how good of a player he is. You're always expecting as an Arsenal fan to have a lightweight midfield. And I think we've seen it over the years, even with good players who've done good jobs for us like Flamini or Coquelin, Torreira. Like, these players were good and they were tenacious, but they're not the presence that Partey was in that midfield. There was no fear in there. How many times have we gone to Old Trafford and they've kicked us off the park? This wasn't going to be one of those games, because you try and kick Partey, he's going to kick back. You try and outmuscle him, he's going to muscle back. I felt sorry for Paul Pogba in a way, because he's obviously going to be asked to do more as a Manchester United player, and he was after this game. I mean, Roy Keane was very scathing about Manchester United as a whole. But I feel sorry for him in the point that Partey is such a good player, such a good defensive player, that he had a tough challenge, and I think Partey passed it with flying colours, and it's really encouraging, because now you think about games against Chelsea, games against Spurs, where we're going to need that presence in midfield. It is cliche, Arsenal have needed a DM since Vieira, but this is the most, in just terms of physicality, because I don't think he is the type of player to be just a pure Vieira. But again, Vieira, a lot of Arsenal fans consider Vieira as just a pure DM, and that's again quite disrespectful to Patrick Vieira. But Partey is good at defensive actions, and he looks like he is the perfect player to fit into Mikel Arteta's system. Then we get on to Gabriel, who had a fantastic night at the back again. He's, £26 million for the Brazilian. It's a real bargain when you think about it. I did not think he would be this impressive this soon. He's an absolute rock at the back. He's smart as well. You feel sure with him. There was obviously the tackle I mentioned earlier with Matic. He did go on the ground. If he mistimed it by a second, it could have been a penalty, but it was a fantastic tackle. He got it absolutely spot on. And he's got to be the first name in that defence now, hasn't he? Especially the central defence. He's just so crucial to what we're doing, and you can see why Mikel Arteta wanted him. Now, you think about someone like Pablo Mari, he's not getting into the side now. Or Luiz, he's going to have a fight on his hands to get in the side just because of how good Gabriel has been. And it's really encouraging to see that, because we have made very bad transfers in the past, especially with defenders. I mean, we've got 8 of them on our books, and Gabriel at the moment only seems to be the one with a decent amount of quality, but this is a good transfer. It shows that paying 50-60 million pounds for a top centre-back is not always the smartest plan when you can find relative gems. Now, obviously, when you pay 26 million for a signing, you obviously expect them to be good, especially for 26 million for Arsenal. It's a pretty decent chunk of money. But he was a fantastic signing so far. Hopefully he keeps improving and keeps being solid in defence. He is part of the backline that has conceded the fewest goals in the league so far. That's really encouraging, and hopefully he just keeps growing and going from strength to strength. But I have to mention Mohamed Elneny as well as the final player that I said I would mention at the start. He was terrific. He has such an engine. Now, obviously, he wasn't as adventurous as Partey, but his engine was fantastic. He was also driving forward, which I think is an underrated part of Elneny. I don't think he was beating players, dribbling past players, but he was, if Man United was sitting in a low block, he was driving the ball to the edge of the box to try and play past to Willian, to Bellerin. He done really well, and his engine was fantastic in the end, because in the 90th minute, 91st minute, you had him chasing down Manchester United defenders and winning a throw-in for us. This is in the 91st minute. Obviously, it's not acceptable for you would understand if a player's fitness was down and he didn't have as much stamina at that point. But Elneny looked like he could just run and run all day for 180 minutes, for 4 hours, whatever. Like, he was fantastic on the day, and him and Partey made a really good midfield against Manchester United. And I think that is a midfield that could be something going forward as a blueprint. Overall, it was a fantastic performance. The penalty we won was really well worked as well. Bellerin underlapping Willian, and Pogba tripped him. There was no doubt. So, I mean, it's 3 points. Obviously, we're not that high in the table. I think at current time of recording, we're 9th. I think that can change if Leeds win against Leicester. So, I guess now it's just to talk about Mikel Arteta. And this week, I think, has been tough for him on social media, because I think a lot of people have started to doubt his credentials. I think a lot of people recognise that he has built a fantastic structure, but our attacking play has been quite dull. We still don't take enough shots. Now, let's make no mistake. We didn't take 15, 20 shots in this game. We took a very small amount of shots again. We took 8 shots in the game, which is not amazing. But remember, 2 shots that should have happened. The Aubameyang one, if he gets on the end of that, that's another shot. Big XG chance. And then the Lacazette one where Lindelof toe pokes it. These are shots that, if they happen, we would have dominated them on an XG. And we dominated them performance-wise. We were very good value for our 1-0 win. We should have won by more. And Arteta has got criticised all week, I think, for being too defensive and being maybe there is doubts of him building a good attack. But I think those questions are really premature. Remember, this is a man who is in his first coaching job, who hasn't even been here for a year, who has inherited most of the players in this squad. And remember, he hasn't had a pre-season as well. So there's all these things that have made it tough, and he's already delivered a lot for us. Now, I think everyone's going to judge him on Arsene Wenger's standards, but just look at, if we accept, which I do, that Arsene Wenger's reign is never going to happen again, then we have to compare him to other managers who had short reigns, like Unai Emery, who didn't win a trophy. We conceded 30 shots a game. We don't do that under Arteta anymore. Remember, we were in a mess. We were in the bottom half of the table when Arteta came in. And he's come in, won us a trophy, has built a structure. Again, pointing out, we are the team that has conceded the least amount of goals in the league this season. Arsenal Football Club have conceded the least amount of goals this season. Do you know how crazy that is to say? And I think he deserves immense credit. I think he is a victim of his own success a bit. I think his stock is only rising with every big game win. I think on the Arsecast Extra on Friday, Musa Okwonga put it best, that Arteta's trying to build an aura, and that takes time. He's trying to create a culture. These are things that you can't really measure on a analytics page. And I completely respect analytics as a good barometer of checking where your team is during the season. It is a very good tool to use. But I think he's trying to change the culture of Arsenal, and it looks like it's working. He said after the game, Arteta, that he didn't even tell his players that it had been 14 years since Arsenal had been Manchester United. He's trying to change us from being second best. He's trying to make us the best team we can. And that's going to take time. He's built a really good structure, and now the attacking end of the pitch hopefully will come with time. Now, if 6 months down the line we regress under Arteta, then yes, questions can be asked, but give the man time. Look at Ralph Hasenhüttl at Southampton. They lost 9-0 last year against Leicester, and they are flying now. They are doing really well this season, and that's because he's been given time. Give Arteta time. Remember where we were when he came in, and look where we are now. He's raised expectations, and that's because of the job he's done. So for the final segment of today, I'm going to take questions from you guys that I asked on Twitter. Now, I put a tweet up at AFC Met about if there was any questions you wanted me to answer on the podcast. So let's get on to the first one by at Deco AFC. Thank you for asking your question. Predictions such as champions, top 4 and relegation based on what you've seen so far, although maybe wait until the international break would be a better time to answer this. But I'm going to answer it now because I think it's a good time after a decent win. If you haven't heard me, I went on the Daily Cannon podcast this week. I'll leave a link in the description so you can check that out. And I was asked this question actually, and I said that I think top 6, I think 5th and 6th is basically where I think we're going to end up. I think the champions will be Liverpool. I still think they're the best side in the league. Losing Van Dijk is a massive blow, but Man City haven't looked that good going forward this season, and I think Liverpool have still looked very good going forward. So I think Liverpool will win the league. I think City will come second. Chelsea third. I think Chelsea, you'd expect them to come third with the signings that they've had. It completely depends, I think, if Lampard has been a good coach at Chelsea this season. The jury's still out for him, but you'd expect them to finish third with the signings and the money they spent. And then 4th is really a toss-up because it could be Spurs, as much as I would hate to say it. It could be us, but we would have to improve a lot. Remember, we still finished 8th. I'm very happy with the result yesterday, but we did finish 8th last year. So going from 8th to 4th without a massive transformation in our attacking play does seem a tad unrealistic. So, but we are in the hunt, but maybe an outside bet. Leicester, they've been great this season. Beat us very well. And then you got Wolves. Everton, I think, are going to be up there as well. I mean, James Rodriguez and Calvert-Lewin have seemingly really transformed them this season. And then maybe outside shots of like Leeds and Villa. But apart from that, I think the top 4 will be Liverpool, Man City, Chelsea, and probably, as much as I hate to say it, Spurs. So thank you for your question. Next question, at Pablo Sons. I've probably pronounced that really badly, so sorry. And he asks, what do you think of Mohamed Elneny's performances this season whenever he's played? Also, what do you make of our new signing, Gabriel? So, as I touched on earlier, I think Elneny's been good this season. I think this was his best performance by a mile. I think he's been quietly good. I think people forget that at the end of Wenger's reign, he done very well. At the back end of 2017-18, he had done very well. He earned himself a new contract. I remember Arsenal fans arguing, because I was probably one of them, arguing that Mohamed Elneny should be in our team as part of a midfield three. I remember arguing that. And he obviously inherited a number 4 shirt, which in hindsight maybe wasn't the best thing, but it wasn't just given to him as a random gesture. He earned it from his performances. He went out on loan to Besiktas last year and he's come back and he's done really well. Arteta loves using him and he's a great player to have in the squad. I don't think he's going to be first choice. I would still want a better player in that position, but for the performances he's been putting in so far this season, he's been great, and I think we've really done well to integrate him back in the squad. Remember, we did lose 2 midfielders this year. We lost Torreira and we lost Guendouzi. So we've replaced one of them with Thomas Partey, Partey, and now we've replaced Guendouzi with Elneny. And that's not just because they have very similar hair. No, that seems to have been the plan. Because look at Elneny's pressing in the end of the Man United game. And I think of I was at the Arsenal-Everton home game last season. And Guendouzi came on and was pressing like mad, going even beyond the striker in the last few minutes. And that's basically what Arteta has done with Elneny, and it's really, really encouraging to see. As for Gabriel, he's been fantastic so far this season. I think he's been totally worth his money so far, and we're really lucky to have him. I guess it says how bad our other defenders are when you could say he's probably our best centre-back, but that's no slight on him. He's been really terrific this season. He's had great performances pretty much whenever he's played, and I just can't imagine a team without him. So really well done to him, and it's been a great sign. So thank you for your question. So the final question. So again, if you want to get your questions in, just ask at AFC Met. I'll put a tweet out every week before the podcast, and it's from Figgy Stein at Figgy Stein, and he says, what was your take on Willian's performance yesterday, and would like to get your thoughts on Laka in general right now? So I'll touch on Willian. I think he was okay. He wasn't incredible. I think Willian is a very system player, and I think for what Arteta wants, that's fine. I think there are going to be some games where you're going to be frustrated by him, and you're going to want Nicolas Pepe to start on the right instead of him. It's going to be a real good challenge. He was obviously fantastic in the Fulham game. I think this was his second best performance. I think he was good. I think he connected very well with Bellerin, which was encouraging because Bellerin was really good yesterday. And I think what's good about him as well is that he seems to be able to do it on both feet, which I don't think Pepe can do. I mean, Pepe's very one-footed. Yes, I know he scored a very, very good goal against Dundalk with his right foot. But for the majority of the time, he's trying to cut in on that stronger left. Whereas Willian, I think he's got a bit more security on the ball. And like I suggested last week after the Leicester performance, I think sometimes you want to put all the players on the pitch without thinking about balance. And I think Willian does add some good technical security. Even if I didn't like the signing, I think now he's here, there is a somewhat sense of him being used in the same team that Lacazette and Aubameyang are in, because he's the technical one out of the three. So his performance wasn't bad. It wasn't incredible, but everyone was really good on the night. I do worry that maybe he's lost yard of pace, but we will see what happens. I don't like it's a 3-year deal, but he's a good player for now, and hopefully it doesn't come to bite us and we can get rid of him in the future. And Lacazette, I think he played very well last night. I think Lacazette has got unfair, I wouldn't say unfair, a harsh amount of stick. I think the stick has been justified because I think his performance against Leicester was poor. He's had a lot of poor performances, and when he has a bad performance, you notice it. You really do. He is clumsy, he's messy, everything rebounds off him. But when he has a good performance like he did yesterday, you can see why he's in the team. And I think if it was me, I would probably sell him at the end of the season and try and upgrade on him. If you're not going to use Aubameyang up top, which again at this point I don't know if Mikel Arteta wants to use Aubameyang up top. If you're not going to use Aubameyang up top, then maybe replacing Lacazette is probably a smart thing to do. But for now, I think the performance against Manchester United has probably justified him into the team, and has probably kept his place for the weekend against Villa. Obviously, he'll probably drop out the team for Eddie against Mulder on Thursday. But apart from that, I think he deserves his place on the weekend against Villa. If he performs poorly against Villa, then we'll have another talk about it. But I think he performed well against Manchester United. Let's see where we go from here. Right, and that is the end of the questions. So thank you so much. I know it was only 3 questions, but hopefully we can get some more next week. But this is the end of the Can You Believe It podcast. And it is really encouraging to sign off with an Arsenal win at Old Trafford. The first one in the league since 2006. So that's really great to hear. And I will speak to you next week. Possibly after the Europa League game on Thursday. We will see. But if not, I will definitely speak to you after next week. So till then, come you Gunners.
Well, it's broken Kanu's way, and is right out of the centre. It's Kanu, what's he going to do? Oh! Can you believe it?